Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Wednesday, a hump day, a victory Wednesday here on Orange Bloods Live. So happy to be here with you guys and a bunch to get to today. I just got done with the offensive deep dig. Kind of a weird day at the office for Quinn Ewers this last week. We'll talk about that. Some things it's just some things I want to just get off my chest before we get that game behind us and move forward to this all-important two-game stretch here with Kentucky and Texas A&M. Sark had his media availability with the SEC media call, so Cody and I listened to the coaches call today, some takeaways from that. We have Mike Fasusi and Brent Venables yesterday from what he said. Let's just start there, Cody, because it was in all the Oklahoma newspapers today. Kind of the thing that, Oklahoma now kind of being out of it. They have a monster game coming up this weekend, and all the headlines in the newspapers aren't about how Alabama's coming to town and how Oklahoma might be able to, finish this season, salvage it in some kind of way with some wins here at the end. But no, it's talking about Mike Fasusi and that he's visiting Austin this weekend as opposed to visiting that game. And then Brent Venables yesterday said, as far as he's concerned, if you're taking visits at this point, you're not committed. They followed up with a follow-up question from that where he said, I want to get his quote right because it's certainly just cockamamie on its own. So he says, he was asked if he's changed his mind in regards to committed players, continue to look around. And he said, and I quote, and this is via the Oklahoman, if you're visiting other schools in the present moment, then you're not committed. That's what I would say. And then there was a follow-up about, whether they're violating his no visit policy and if OU would pull any offers. And he said that part of my policy, Venables said when asked if that was the case, I never said that. Has his policy changed at all? No, Venables said. So I guess it's not technically a part of his. I think he's tilted that Fasusi's visiting, but they're saying, well, you're going to pull his, you going to pull his offer? He's like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But he just said the guy's not committed. I think that, I feel like it's like it's a little bit of a political misstep for a coach that finds himself in a weird spot right now.
I think he's grasping for straws here, grasping for anything because the ship is sinking and he doesn't want the thing to capsize, which it feels like it's getting close to doing. And if they get blown out by Alabama, which what Alabama looks like right now, they might get run off the field in Norman this weekend. And that might be the tip that, allows Fasusi to be like, that ain't where I want to go. Also in that same column, their current four-star commit in the 2026 class, Jaden O'Neal, visited Colorado last weekend as well, and that was also part of the column. So not only Fasusi, but also Jaden O'Neal. So they don't really have a choice right now. Like he may have this policy. I know this policy goes back to Dabo Sweeney at Clemson. I don't think they ever was a total like we'll pull your offer type of a thing, but it was definitely something that Dabo, I remember being very strong about. Like if you're committed, you don't go anywhere else. Obviously Dabo runs his ship different than everybody else in the country right now. But
is it going to work?
I think for Dabo,
yeah. We've talked about it before. You said you didn't think it would really hit. I think that program is on a little bit of a downtrend.
Of course it's on. Of course it's on a downtrend. It's kind of hard to stay. He literally called Deshaun Watson the Michael Jordan of college football, which you could argue for a year or two he kind of was. And then of course Trevor Lawrence, the golden child, like it's kind of tough to fill those shoes. And I think Klubnik's came along and done fine. Does Klubnik have one more year there, or does he go? Do you think he'll go pro? I think he's got one more year there.
Cade was the same year as Quinn. So I don't know if Cade redshirted or not.
I would. So they got him listed. I would go back if I was Cade. Like I just think, especially the state of the quarterback class, if Cade goes back, that team's got a ton of young weapons. I don't think they're completely dead in the water. I think this is his last gasp, his last last gasp, I guess. Is that the ways how you say that? Last chance, last hurrah. Like they're going for it. They're trying to rebuild this thing. If Cade doesn't go back there next year, I think they'll definitely be in a spot. But I think Clemson's fine. But this is about our boy Venables, and definitely not our boy, but the boy. We'll say. I've always liked him, as a coach when he was at Clemson, but I don't know if this is. Hey, they can keep him as long as they want, but you're not pulling an offer for a 5-star and a 4-star, especially a tackle and a quarterback.
Look, man, I think that things like this only help. It hurts the optics for Oklahoma, but it only helps Texas.
Yeah,
it don't and Texas A&M wherever he chooses to flip. But it's starting to feel like the fact that he didn't even call the OU coaches and let them know. You know what I mean? And
dude, I mean, I said I don't want to it doesn't mean anything, but that video from a couple weeks ago when he literally said, when he just started smirking when he was asked about Sarkisian, and everyone's like, well, he said what did I say in my post? I'm a Sooner for life. Like he just said it because he knew he had that in his back pocket. But as soon as Sarkisian was brought up, he smiled. As soon as visiting A&M was brought up, he smiled. Like I think the writing's been on the wall, man. It's just kind of like I think Catch and Chad had a show last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, whenever it was, about appeasing the mom. I think that's where they're at right now. I think Fasusi's got his mind made up. I think the mom is just the one that they got to turn.
The mom's a big deal, man.
Yep.
It's always a monster deal in recruiting for sure. But I also think that a mom, if she's plugged into the recruitment at all, and if she's seen anything, like it's still, I mean, that's her kid. And if she gets the, you know how it is with your kids, man. You're not going to want to send them off to go. You're protective of your kids, and you want to make sure where they're going is somewhere you approve of and everything. But that stuff can change really quick. If you see some side of somebody that you thought you liked, and you're like, something new and a little bit squirrely, that can almost give you worse vibes. You're like, oh wait, have I been reading this guy wrong? Like, what else could I be reading wrong about this dude? You know what I mean? So
yeah, and that's one thing that Sark was asked about today during the teleconference. We'll just weave right into it. Might as well. Is he was asked about? I think Anwar asked the question, so I don't want to steal all of Anwar's thunder because I think he's probably gonna have a write up about it. But he asked about basically flipping guys late, like DeAndre Moore, Ant Hill, Ethan Burke, Gilbo, Banks, etc. And Sark had a pretty good response to that, and he's like, we're not worried about, like, I know the flash that is seen across social media of like the Lambos and stuff. He goes, we're not a 24, 48-hour recruitment. We're not trying to get you in here and just make you commit on the spot. We're about building relationships. We're about the long haul. So I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to steal too much of that from Anwar. I think he's probably going to use that in one of his columns, but I thought it was a good thought because it's there's a track record. Now, it hasn't just happened once. I think you can put Xavier Filsaime in there too. He's done this where you wait till the last minute and all of a sudden you got this high-end name that flips, and it's about the relationship that they built. And I think you can probably, feel good about the Fasusi situation right now with that.
Let's see. We got a couple questions here in the chat. And a super chat from our guy Jose Rodriguez. What's going on, Jose? How you been, brother? $4.99. Thank you, my friend. All right, super chat $4.99. Alex, what's your earliest memory of becoming a fan of UT football? Cody, which school team for you as well? For me, it was 03 Red River shootout versus OU. Watching VY. Well, for me, I wasn't a fan of UT football growing up, so I didn't really even watch college football growing up. So that makes me a lot different than most of you guys, or like my own kids. You know what I mean? They're just like half their clothes are like burnt orange, themed clothes. My whole family went to Rice, and so my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, my grandmother. My great uncle taught there. My grandpa's got like a wing of a library named after him. Like they're really big Rice Owls. And so we would go to the only Texas games I would go to would be the games where they played Rice. So it's like all I saw was them lose to Rice, like, by 80 points all the time. I think my first memory, I just, I came to Texas and just started going to the games. I was usually kind of pretty faded going into those games. I don't have that many memories of it. My best memories is when I was, as a fan would have been just being at those 2 Rose Bowls, being the kick at the end of the one versus Michigan, and then of course just being there for VY and fourth and 5. Those would be the best memories for sure. But I don't have as long of a span going back. Cody, which school team? Oh, well, you've already talked about this, but maybe Jose didn't hear.
I mean, kind of, but like I said, I've never been really a true fan of really any team. I remember vividly certain things. Like I remember watching Tebow. I know it seems like it was, I don't know. I was early, I don't know what I was, 9, 10 when Tebow was playing. I remember watching Reggie Bush. Like I was always a fan of players because I grew up in Minnesota and the Gophers were always pretty bad. They had Lawrence Maroney and stuff like that, but never really great. I remember watching Vince from my grandma's nursing home when they would drop, they dropped 70 on Kansas. I vividly remember those games when Texas was on ABC scoring 70 points a game. And then I kind of turned into a Miami, I guess, pseudo fan during like the Brad Kaya years, which was like 2011, 12, 13, maybe 10, 11, 12, 13. It was horrible football. Jacoby George, it was just horrible football, but I liked Miami because of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Warren Sapp and guys like that. But I guess I don't really have a true answer to it other than I just kind of like players and I've always liked players, and I still don't consider myself a fan of really anything.
That's why Cody and I love NFL the most. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I grew up as a maniacal NFL fan, But anyway, the Jesse
Great question.
Asking if my family was mad I didn't go to Rice. No, I didn't get into Rice. I tried, and they sent me. Dude, they sent my grandpa a rejection letter before they sent one to me. Anyway, so there were some questions though up here. So David Keith Williams, our guy, and I want to get into the rest of the Sark press conference because I didn't. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I want to answer these questions. What are your views regarding the chances that Texas potentially loses Jaime Ffrench and Myron Charles and potentially gains Fasusi, Cade Phillips, and possibly Zion Williams? For one, I don't think Texas is losing Jaime Ffrench.
I'd agree with you on that in short and just say that the footage we did see, everything we've heard via words from Jason or from other sources has been positive. But even watching Jaime Ffrench talk, which I talked about with the Fasusi thing just a minute ago, when he talked about Texas, he's basically like, yeah, I mean, Florida's there, but I'm meeting with the coaches and stuff and blah, blah, blah. There's nothing that's like, there's no substance there. And he keeps, I think in the video I watched, he went back to my family at Texas. I'm committed to Texas. I love Texas. I think he said it like 7, 8 times in the video. Yeah. A whole different vibe than it was for the Fasusi video.
And I think it might have been on this show or the modcast, Cody. I feel like half of my life I spend in these boxes with you, brother. But I forgot what it was. But the exact quote whenever he gave the statement to Jason was that he said like nothing's changed. That like I still love Sark, love the offense, all the rest of this stuff. Like it's always been hook 'em. And for me, whenever I hear that, the only thing that Florida right now would have on Texas would be proximity to home, and the fact that he didn't say anything about any kind of Florida's close to home, blah blah. Like if he would have said something like that, I would have been like, oh, maybe there's some kind of close to home stuff. I know with Myron Charles that could be. I think that's the concern with him too. I'm not particularly concerned, but I think with Jaime Ffrench, that wouldn't be one that I worried about. If you were just going to ask straight, I mean, getting Fasusi, would it be worth losing Ffrench and Myron? That's a question all on its own, but I don't think we need to.
I don't want to say it out loud, but I will say I would trade A for B.
you say You'd say your terms are acceptable. Right,
The
okay.
terms are acceptable for the first name in each sentence.
Yeah. Okay.
Because of the strength at their one position in depth in the class and the lack of high-end talent in the other position.
Look, this is a really hard one to answer from Sandman. Is Fasusi better than Kelvin Banks as a high school senior? There's
You'll
a
have to answer
couple.
that. I've never seen the
Okay.
Banks high school film.
Well, I've never seen Mike Fasusi at a camp. I did see Kelvin at a camp. Kelvin was an incredible prospect. Fasusi hasn't played as long. I think Fasusi moves as well. I think he's got a little bit better natural length to him. It's really tough. I think he's as good as Banks as a prospect, and that I know that's saying a lot because we're looking at Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks, who for once wasn't the best player on the Texas offensive line this last week.
Was it Hayden Connor?
No, it was DJ Campbell. It was DJ Campbell. Why does PFF say it's Connor?
I think Connor was he SEC conference was he offensive lineman of the week, I want to say.
Hayden Connor played well, but DJ Campbell, man, that guy played out of his mind. He played awesome. He played awesome. But I think, and so it's really hard. Like this can end up looking really stupid because we're talking about a guy that's going to go first round, but we're not talking about the finished product. We're talking about him as high school seniors, and I just think baking in what I've seen of him, baking in what I've heard from D-Hawk about him, about how he's just on the he's just now scratching the surface. And you're like, if that's just scratching the surface, then what we're going to have here is a mammoth of a player. And whereas you have guys like, I have a buddy that's an SEC recruiting director for a really good team. And he told me that Fasusi is the best high school offensive lineman that he's ever evaluated. So, and that guy's a good evaluator, Cody. You know who he is. So it's just like, it's not just, there are lots of points to why Fasusi was just my, Mike Fasusi, no matter what. Like I came to that through a whole checklist that wasn't just my eyeballs. Not as easy as the Colin Simmons, no matter what, because you don't need a checklist with that. You just you see the burst off the line of scrimmage and the bend, and you just say, okay, well, like that's an insta lock. He's gonna have 10 sacks as a freshman. Now I'm not saying he's gonna have 2 sacks a game over the next 2, whatever, but you know what I'm saying. It was very easy to see his skill set was going to translate. It's a little bit harder with offensive line. But I think the fact that we're sitting here splitting these hairs and it's so hard to tell because if you would have asked me about like Brandon Baker and Kelvin Banks, I said, oh, Banks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's Fasusi is the real deal, man. Money B's asking if we can get D-Hawk on the show. We should get D-Hawk on the show. Maybe we'll get him on whenever it slows down and we don't have games and deep dig and all that stuff. We're going to need some of this.
Well, yeah, we'll get the we'll have a couple of weeks probably after the what is it between it'll be either between the A&M game and the playoff game and a bowl game, or between the SEC championship and a playoff or bowl game. We'll have a couple of weeks.
I've even looked at what the bowls are for whatever this new NIT tournament's going to be for the bowls that aren't for the CFP.
Oh, the pop tarts.
Yeah, like I haven't even looked what the good ones are or anything like that.
I got a whole I haven't looked at it. I have a magnet on my refrigerator with every bowl on it, but I have not looked at it. It's literally on the middle of my refrigerator. There's like one magnet on the whole fridge.
Man, I was thinking earlier, dude, bowl pick'em contests are going to get a little bit like they're going to have to have a new format this year, aren't they? Because I guess people are going to put in brackets. I would imagine, but it'll be harder to differentiate from the crowd and really it feels like there would be a bunch of duplicated brackets if you played in a big enough league. And then the other thing I was thinking was if they do bowl pick'ems where you used to like I used to love the bowl pick'ems where you could pick from like the 42 different games. But out of the last games, there's going to be certain ones that occur and don't occur that you're not going to be able to pick, right? Based on how the bracket happens, it isn't all laid out beforehand where you can do a pick 'em, unless maybe they can make a dynamic pick 'em where it just change, where you can just make those picks as they come open and then they lock. That's a lot of development though for the
I'm sure ESPN probably has something already ready for that. I know in years past, ones I've done, especially with the 4-team tournament, 4-team bracket, which is a little easier to understand, given that they can just do like LSU / Clemson, Georgia / they can just do that for the one thing. But now that it's like a multi-tiered thing, I think just first off my mind, I would say I would do all the crappy bowls, and then I would do like a bonus, like a 5-pointer. So if every bowl is worth 1 point, the champion is worth 5. And all you have to do is you have to predict the champion in your bowl picks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You predict 40 games, and then you're like, essentially your pseudo tiebreaker is like, I'm predicting the 4-seed Boise State's going to win the national championship, and you're going to get 5 points if that happens on your score.
They'll probably do something.
Do a bracket. You also do a bracket. It's a whole different competition.
No, what it's going to be is there's just going to be here's what it's going to be. You pick the regular games. Is that some football with friends beef jerky? Oh, Sonny, that looks good. That looks really good. Look at that football with friends beef jerky. Tasty as hell. That's the cowboy blend right there. You can, Cody, we hold that up a little bit kind of closer to the camera so people can see how kind of like it's a little bit. No, I mean the actual beef product. It's sirloin, but it's like a little bit it's kind of oily. You know what I mean? It's like you could. I'm telling you, dude. Our signature blends. We have the jalapeno garlic and the cowboy blend from Texas Beef Traders. It's all the same great beef that we've been talking to you guys about. And y'all sold them out last time, but they've re-upped and they've reordered some new ones, and then they've gotten bigger batches. So you can get them right there with the QR code. And then you can also, I'll drop a link in the chat to where you can get this stuff from Texas Beef Traders. Darren will get it sent right out to you. Again, the link is in the chat for beef jerky. All right. But Texas Beef Traders, man, they're a great sponsor. Also, a reminder, speaking of Texas Beef Traders, we do have our meetup coming this Friday. Cody's coming into town for this, so we need you guys to show up. Live show right there at Texas Beef Traders, Loman's Crossing in the heart of Lakeway. Super easy to find. It's right there in the shopping center, right next to HEB. Come in, eat some free beef, drink some free beers or waters, whatever you want. We'll have plenty of refreshments for everybody. It's going to be family friendly. It always is. And come say hi, man. Come, like, it was so great meeting so many people last time and have them say, you look different in real life or stuff. It's just wild, man. Getting to put a name to a face to all you awesome people out there. So come see us at Texas Beef Traders this Friday. We'll be there from 5:30 to 7:30. We'll have the show as usual from 6 to 7. And you guys can come on the show or give your feedback, give your own takes. It's going to be a great time at Texas Beef Traders. And remember, just go in there and go hang out with the guys, man. You get 10% off. It's the best beef that you can find anywhere. It's like going to the farmer's market. Texas Beef Traders. Okay. I'll just leave that beef.
I've never used that one before.
Which one?
It's like going to the farmer's market. I don't know if you've ever said that one before.
But it's cheaper. And those farmers, like, at the farmer's market, you don't know if they're going to be like, at Texas Beef Traders, no vaccines, no mRNA, no steroids, none of this cockamamie antibiotics, just pure clean beef. It's delicious. All right. What were we talking about before whenever you showed the beef?
We're continuing talking about I don't remember.
Oh yeah, just about the way that so the way they're going to do it is you're going to pick all the pick'em games, right, for all the bowls, and then you're going to pick the games for the first round, and then after that it's just going to tell you to pick a national champion. And the national champion, you'll get like the 5-point bonus. I think that's how they'll get around it this year. Anything interesting else from Sark? Because you and I both, you were getting in the car whenever Sark. I listened to the whole SEC media conference today, and I've thoughts about what some of these coaches said. But I had a meeting. I had a roster watch meeting for our fantasy football company at 12:30, and I totally forgot that's when Sark goes on, and I had to hop on the call. So I didn't hear Sark. You didn't hear Sark, but you got Chuck email you the transcript.
I heard parts of it, but I was driving, so I couldn't make any notes. It was actually interesting and something we've talked about. We actually talked about it, I think, yesterday. A couple questions he was actually brought up was about guys like Christian Jones and Jermaine Lole and David Binda that have been in college for 6-7 years, and how unique that is to have on the team guys that have been through multiple coaching staffs and stuff of that nature. He kind of just brought that up. He's like, the adaptability that they have, what they mean in the locker room is pretty important, having been through multiple coaches, and just their progression. And I think it just feeds into everything. I mean, we've talked about it before. It feeds into everything that Sark loves to talk about, and referencing that Arkansas game from the first year that they lost, and guys, and I think 11 guys on that team. And now 9 of them were starters that were on the team that 4 years ago, I think he said. And then chasing the Big 12 championship, and now being able to chase after an SEC championship. And he just likes to tie all these things together. And I think that was like Joe Cook brought that one up. And then I think Kirk Bowles asked him another question about, I don't remember what it was, how important 4 and 5 year guys are to the program. And it's just like the same thing that we've talked about.
They just want to give Sark his layup question a couple times a week. Let him talk about the importance of come in, sit behind somebody, develop. When your number is called, you're ready to go. You go to the league, look at Gunnar Helm, look at T'Vondre Sweat, look at Jalen Ford, look at Christian Jones, look at
Hayden, Juan Davis.
Look at Juan Davis, Alfred Collins, Jade Barron. Like it's just the list goes on and on. And it's an effective pitch.
Yeah.
Especially in this age of, transfer portal, NIL, all this stuff like that. Right. So anything else of any interest? Did he give any
Chip Brown came at him with I think Chip Brown got chirped last week, so he kind of came back with the layup this week. He just basically said, what's DeAndre Moore is how do you assess DeAndre Moore's perimeter blocking and downfield blocking this year, and how's he progressing this week? And Sark basically went into what we've already know, because we've already heard him answer this question 10 times about, we challenged him to be in the hip pocket of Jordan Whittington and be that guy. And he just expressed how important DeAndre Moore is. He did that. He's definitely become the leader in that room, in the wide receiver room. He'll do anything we ask him. I mean, we had him block defensive ends now the last couple of weeks. But on the flip side, while he was doing all the dirty work blocking, the ball really wasn't finding him, and there was no complaining. There was no complaining. Then there was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks that go in a row that he does get the ball. And that's just kind of how the process works. And that's, again, things we've heard Sark say about DeAndre Moore before, as well as Jordan Whittington, and how important that is to the wide receiver room. Reason I cough is because patience in the wide receiver room is key.
Okay.
For people on the team.
Somebody in the chat says that the Jerky sold out. It's not sold out. I just went and checked whenever Cody was talking. It's getting close. They're running. It is technically right now. It is technically right now kind of sold out. But they'll have new stuff soon.
Well, I think what he means is sold out. I don't think you can click the buy button. Right?
Oh, let me see. I just clicked it. I just added a couple things in there. It says on the thing. It says last time it sold out. We're running low, but I was able to put it in the cart.
I didn't know they refilled it. Okay, sweet, awesome. Okay. Well, we'll be there, Friday to talk to him, so it'll be all good.
Yep. Anything else?
No, I think everything else is pretty. Again, he got like 5 questions in. We kind of went over 3 of them were about the same thing, about the Christian Joneses of the world, the Jermaine Lole's, and then all these guys progressing, and then the last one was Anwar's question that we talked about. So not a very eventful opportunity today for Sark.
He say anything about Tia Savea being at all these different programs?
I think he's probably going to be at Auburn next year, isn't he?
That dude just doesn't play.
with
That
Trail
dude
City.
just doesn't play. Yeah, man. Speaking of Auburn, so they're hosting the Aggies this week. So one of the reporters asked him. They said, "Man, you love Auburn, like you're kind of out of it or whatever." But he said Auburn's in a position to impact the CFP in a major way. Have you thought about that? And he's like, "It's like, you know what? That's a good question. I haven't thought about that really." He goes, "But now that you mention it, like that, yeah, that's something we could think about. We could come in here, play spoiler, like all this, Is there any way that he hadn't thought about that? Of course, that's your motivation. I figured that would be the key motivation.
Well,
Maybe
the focus, the focus is on probably recruiting for him right now, and then just getting his team ready, right? So his brain probably is literally. I mean, who'd we hear? Drinkwitz, who's like technically a fringe, like they're ranked right now. So technically, he probably looked at the rankings, but even he was asked about the rankings, and he's like, "Yeah, you just kind of forget about it. Don't worry about it, and you worry about the last one." So if Drinkwitz is like on the, he's in the top 25 fringe, and he's like probably not looking at it, I really doubt Hugh Freeze even watched it or even has a clue who's ranked where. To be honest with you,
what Drinkwitz said, I think he thinks he's in.
He's on some of that good if he thinks that.
But he's saying you've got to stay away from the roller coaster of it week in and week out. The teams that win are going to be in. Don't worry about sports talk radio and commentary. The end of the day, the teams that win are going to be in. The teams that don't won't.
Well, here's the cold hard truth here, Alex. South Carolina's ahead of you, and South Carolina's better than you. So South Carolina's getting in before you. That's how that works. And they're not probably getting in.
What is Missouri's
where they ranked? 23.
Yeah, but I want to take a quick look at their schedule.
They got blitzed by A&M at A&M. They got blitzed by Alabama at Alabama, and they got beat by 4 against South Carolina. So the resume is fine. Their wins are 7 points against Oklahoma, 4 points against Auburn, 3 points in overtime against Vandy.
So there's no way. So even if we did get one of these cockamamie 3, but we're not going to get a 3-loss SEC team into this deal.
And if we do, it's going to be probably South Carolina.
Yeah, but I think
a lot of stuff needs to go wrong for South Carolina to get in.
Go wrong?
Yeah, a lot of stuff needs to go wrong.
Like what would have to go wrong?
I thought about writing all this up because we talked about it last night on the recap show, and I behoove everybody that hasn't watched the recap show from last night to go watch that because we talked about the rankings and kind of what we see could potentially happen, but a lot would need to go wrong. It's too much of a jumbled conversation to have exactly right now. I kind of want to, I got a 2.5-hour flight tomorrow with a 2.5-hour layover. I'm going to do the if this then what tomorrow, and we'll talk about it.
Are you coming into Austin tomorrow?
Yeah, I got a flight in the morning coming in tomorrow. I'm going to be in tomorrow till Monday.
You staying at your buddy's house?
I'm staying in your bed.
So I was gonna say I wasn't planning on weekend at Alex's coming in on a Thursday. All right, no, you're always welcome here, brother, if you ever need to. All right, what about Stoops today? He just said that so they're coming off bye, right? He said it's good because they're finally getting healthy. He feels like they're about as healthy as they've been all season long. But he says it's just a huge step up in competition. We have to look at it as a great opportunity for us. He said playing well against great teams has not been our problem. It's been consistency. He said you can't find a weakness with Texas. Extremely well coached. They're talented in every phase of the game. What do you think about a team that's been inconsistent, but that's actually played up to good teams in certain spots, and then in certain spots just didn't?
Well, I mean, what has Georgia done? They've played. If I'm being honest with you, like I said before, like Georgia played their best game possible against Texas. The best half of football they played all year was against Texas. They didn't play great the first half against Bama. They played tight against Kentucky. Only a 2-score game against Auburn. 2-score game against Mississippi State. 2-score game against Florida. They haven't exactly, mopped the floor with teams. And of course, the game against Tennessee was tight. I mean, it's the SEC. This is you need to have. I mean, that's what they drilled into our head all the past 2 years coming into the SEC was any given week, every week. It's just like the NFL. Any given Sunday, every single week matters. And that's what you get with, especially with that bottom. I don't want to say bottom rung. Ignore Mississippi State. The bottom rung outside of Mississippi State, the Auburns, the Floridas,
Yeah.
the
They
Kentuckys.
jump and bite you, man.
They'll bite you. Arkansas, even Oklahoma, like they'll all bite you. They'll all get you. And they're all good enough football teams. And I mean, we're literally looking at Kentucky this week, and everyone's like, yeah, Kentucky. They're 1-6 in the conference, but dude, they got Deion Walker, who's probably gonna be a top 15 pick. They got Barry and Brown and Dane Keel, who are really good receivers that, Barry and Brown hasn't had a good season. He's been banged up a bit. They got talent on the team. It's not like they're just a zero. It's not like they're, Baylor, or it's not like they're, Kansas of yesteryear. Like this is a talented football team with NFL football players on it. They get drafted every single year. So everyone's looking for consistency. That's the name of the game. Whether it's high end consistency or just consistently working and grinding and building your program. And I think that's what Stoops has done. He's been there longer than anybody else in the conference. So you're going to get punched in the mouth at some point. And they've played very, like, I think what the trend was. So I wrote it in my column today, and I wrote some notes down from Stoops specifically in his Tuesday press conference at Kentucky. Really not a ton there. He was kind of commenting just on the characteristics of Sarkisian's teams. And then another question was about what he took away from the Arkansas game. But the thing that I took away was, if you look at the last 6 games for Kentucky, so they beat Murray State, they lost to Tennessee, lost to Auburn, Florida, Vandy, and beat Ole Miss. These are the halftime scores of those games. Against Murray State, they were up 24-0 at half. Against Tennessee, who they lost to, they were up 10-3 at half. Against Auburn, who they lost to, was 10-10 at half. Against Florida, they were down 13-27. They got blown out in that game. Vandy, 7-14. Ole Miss, they were up 10-7 at half, and they won that game. They're pretty good. Like, I would say they're a pretty good first half team. And it's just sometimes I think in the long run of games, it takes depth, it takes talent, and sometimes that wears out on you.
What it was like, man, and we heard a lot today in the media call about, there's obviously there's a couple stories that are coming out. The one about the 105 player limit, and the one about what if the whole college football, the same discussion that we're having, the same discussion that everybody's having. And I have a take, like, it's about this thing about playing the SEC's harder, right? You have Lane Kiffin saying, like, look, he's like, you can ask anybody, and I even joke with my coaches who are friends in other conferences, and they say it's just as good. And I'm just like, well, why don't you do this? And he's like, he just thinks it's the most cockamamie thing in the world, right? And then you got Hugh Freeze has played in all these other conferences. You got like all these dudes just saying there's nothing like the SEC, and it doesn't. I mean, Lane Kiffin just said, if you can't just turn on the TV and see it, you just don't know football. It should be obvious to everybody. And I get that. My question is this, is that you have Kirby Smart today throwing what seemed to be, I'm not sure if he's like saying, so somebody has the third ranked defense, because they were asking him about the CFP rankings and what he thought about them. And he's like, well, what about the strength of schedule? Because let's say somebody has a third ranked defense. Don't you think that's dictated by the level of offenses you've played? They say it's about how you play the game, and that's what the CFP says. But he's saying it's not about how you play the game. It's about who you've played the games against
and where.
Yeah, and where. And so, and it brought this like thought to my head, and I saw on the screen last night where it was showing like, Georgia their biggest win versus Texas, and Indiana, their biggest win. One of them was versus Michigan, and I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, well, dude, you guys can't have it both ways and keep talking about how Texas' schedule is so bad, and who've they beaten, but we beat Texas, so we deserve to be in the college football or in the SEC championship. We beat Texas, so obviously look at our resume. We beat Texas, but if Texas happens to lose, hey, Texas' schedule was pretty bad. I mean, it's really talking out of both sides of your mouth.
As well as in that same graphic you were looking at, they had Texas's best wins at Arkansas, at Vandy, and they didn't have Michigan on there, but on the Indiana side, they had Michigan on there. And it's like, well, Michigan, so that's one of your top 2 wins, but you didn't even put them on that graphic on that side. So that means that they're not even as good as the Ark. Okay. And then also you got the Tennessee and the Georgia crowd saying, they lost to them. Their strength of schedule, this, their record, that, Georgia has, they can talk. They've had a tough schedule. Tennessee can talk. Tennessee has had a brutal road schedule. They always talk about road schedules in the SEC, but road night games. Tennessee's had 4 night games this year on the road. They had to travel to Charlotte for a neutral site game against NC State, 2 Oklahoma, 2 Arkansas, 2 Georgia, all night games. Tough. Georgia had 3 night games as well, 2-1. The only other SEC teams that had 2 was Ole Miss and Alabama had 2. Texas has 1. I get that. That's tough. But here's the problem. You can't say that Texas didn't play nobody, but then you lost to Arkansas and you lost to Vandy. The only people that can really talk is Georgia, because they beat Tennessee and they beat Texas. Nobody else in the SEC can talk.
Yeah, but I just feel it's not just you can talk, it's fine, but you're cockamamie.
No, it's not. You can't talk. You have nothing. You have no leg to stand on. Nor does an Indiana really, other than being undefeated.
Well, they can talk and they can say whatever they want. We live in America, man. But listen, the only thing is, man, is when you want to talk like this, I can't believe that nobody's calling them out and saying so is Texas good or is Texas bad?
They seem to think they're bad because
you need to choose one or the other, because you can't make the narrative fit on both sides. It's it doesn't work.
We got to ask them if who thinks they're good, because clearly the committee thinks they're good.
No, well, I'm worried about. I mean, I've seen signs out of the committee that make me think that they might actually respect Texas and want Texas in, and I've also seen signs out of the committee that they don't respect the SEC quite enough. In general,
here's the thing: I wrote
get lumped into that if we get into this whole 2-loss log jam.
Here's the thing: is last night I wrote up the teleconference post CFP, and he was asked a question about the SEC teams. So let me look and let me see where I found it at. So he said the question was 4 SEC teams that have 2 losses and all played each other. What's the weak point in Tennessee's resume, because Tennessee's the bottom? And the answer was 1. They just had the loss at Georgia, and also they have a loss at Arkansas. They're a really good team with a top defense, but we're splitting hairs between Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. They have beat each other at different times, so you have to look at Alabama over the last 3 games. LSU, Missouri, Mercer. We were very impressed with their win at LSU, so we will continue to monitor all of those teams as the season goes on. They did not bring up Texas. They did not say that they were splitting hairs between Texas and Georgia and Tennessee and Ole Miss and Bama. They ranked them appropriately. They ranked them tiers apart. Yeah, but you have to. This is where my mind goes, is that they're ranking these teams and they're talking about these teams on week by week, right? Week by week, they're saying. Yeah. That's how they're talking about it. They're dropping teams 8 spots, dropping them 7, bumping them up 5. They're being aggressive, and they're talking about it on a week by week scale. You can think about, well, if Texas loses to A&M, will they fall out? But how did they have a team ranked 3 and not even have them in this discussion of Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama splitting hairs? Texas can't fall past all of those teams.
They won't fall past all of them.
Completely corrupt system. It would make no sense from their logic.
And I don't think, well, even if it was a corrupt system, they would want Texas in because Texas brings in the most money.
Bingo.
Yeah, so even if they were corrupt, like Texas would have the corruption on its side, technically. Um, there was a question that Money B had that I wanted to look at here, but I also wanted. Was there anything else from the teleconference?
Nothing. Well, other than the main question today, which I thought the best answer. So the same question was asked to everybody. It was essentially, it's going to be a column written by, I want to get his name right.
No
Wilson
Steve Moulton today. No Steve Moulton from WZZN.
Yeah, no Steve Moulton today. So
Dude, I didn't realize what a content creator he is for us every single week, because he fires off 4 questions for each coach, and he takes up if there's no more questions, he just keeps asking. It's crazy.
And today everyone got out with 6 minutes to spare, so I know Drinkwitz was happy about that. But the question from Wilson Alexander today that he asked almost every coach, it felt like, was signing days approaching, roster construction's in flux. The cap is supposedly dropping down to 105 total players. Not only is the conversation about potentially raising the scholarships to 105, now the talk is the cap of the roster is coming down to 105, while scholarships are at 85, and a multitude of these teams are sitting between 120 and 130 as far as players on their roster, and they're going to have to cut 15 to 25 guys per team. So he basically asked every team, he's like, according to me, in my math, you have 131 players. What are you going to do? What's kind of your process? I thought Billy Napier gave the best answer out of everybody all day. He seemed like he was pretty wild.
Napier says he said that it's going to be difficult. He said every part of the offseason is different, but what does that look like in the spring, training camp, and fall? He just says there needs to have clarity. He says, are players replaceable? Can you have a waiting list? If they're on the waiting list, can they still participate in revenue share? He's like, if we don't button it up, there are going to be loopholes to exploit. He just says it's a huge deal. We'll see that there's going to be quite a bit of adjustment. We're just going to keep as many players as we can until they tell us we need to be at 105. But when is that? He's just like all of this. He's saying basically he's trying. Do you know what Lane Kiffin does? Whenever the league comes up with new things, or they institute new rules, or they issue new guidance, or whatever they call it, I think he grumbles to his friends about how cockamamie it is, and he probably has these text messages where they all say a bunch of inappropriate stuff and cuss and all the rest, right? Send each other funny memes, and then about you freeze, and then but then he complains. He just kind of underhandedly complains about it. Says like, "Well, I always knew this was going to happen like this." It's you know how Lane talks. He's like, he's like, none of it makes any sense. Not like it's never made any sense. At least Napier's getting out in front of it and saying like, "Look, this whole thing with Kiffin always looks back and say they didn't think about the possible second order effects of these things. They didn't think about like, okay, so are we going to be able to split scholarships? And if we split scholarships, does that mean that we have to account towards that? Like in other sports, they can split scholarships. How does that go with the revenue share if you split scholarships, or if a player's on a waiting list, right? How does that happen with that? How does that count against it? Are there a certain number of players on a waiting list that are going to constitute one projected scholarship? What happens if you run out of long snappers? It's not like the NFL where you can just go out and go get a street free agent. Can you have guys on kind of standby? Like, how does all this, what are you supposed to tell the walk-ons? And when? It's like there's a lot of stuff where it's like, I don't know, man. It'll be. I'm sure what they're trying to. I'm sure they're trying to do what's best for everybody, but as usual, man, like things get caught up in bureaucracy, and sometimes people on the outside are making decisions, and in their bureaucratic way that they think is best for everybody, but they're not really experts in this one thing. They're just doing what they kind of think is right on principle, and it works in principle, but it doesn't work in real life. And so, like every single coach hates this. Every single one that was asked about it hates it. Everyone.
Drinkwitz was the one that they all said, we don't know when, we don't know when, we don't know when. And then Drinkwitz was asked to double up. I can't remember what the double up question was, but his response to it was the settlement won't be in place until April. So that's kind of the tentative time, I guess, they probably gave these coaches of when they're going to know what the official numbers are, when the official rule is going to go into place. It sounds like it's April based on, was it Free? I think Freeze leaked something a couple weeks ago. I can't remember what it was, but these coaches know stuff. You just got to pry it out of them.
It's
so
the
anyway,
old combine trick, Cody. You just got to ask questions the right way.
yeah.
You
Has the ship sailed on Trent Baalke, by the way?
Oh, I mean, oh. I love the whole thing. I love the whole thing about asking Trent Baalke if the ship has sailed on so and so every year. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see.
Well, I don't think he's gonna be there. Hopefully, the ship sailed on him.
I think the ship sailed on. I think he's going the way of old Joe Douglas. Oh, dude, Cody, I got a new Poncho shirt in the mail today. It's my favorite one I've ever gotten. It's a denim one that's like this kind of dark gray, kind of charcoal gray color. I forget what it's called. They're all kind of named after Texas cities or rivers or stuff. And this was a city that I'd never heard of. Let me tell you if I can. It's like Foul Furious or something. Does anybody know what city that is? Yeah, Foul Furious is the name of this shirt, and it's the denim colored shirt. It's the denim kind of dark gray shirt. Cody, this thing, like, it's a lot heavier than the others, and it's more of like a colder weather shirt. But gosh, it fits awesome. It looks so great, man. Poncho makes just the best clothes. Well, I have yours too. When you come in, you'll have to pick that up. But
I just got a text from Poncho. Actually, if you order anything from Poncho, they'll put you on a text list and they'll give you updates when they get the best thing in. So they got one that came out today. It said the double barrel is here. Our newest shooting shirt is tan and blaze, medium weight flannel. Look at this thing. I know I don't have it up on the screen, so it looks better. But
yeah, it's a good looking shirt.
They're even preparing you for hunting.
Any of you wing shooters out there into this thing? Yeah, dude.
That's pretty cool. I mean,
there you go. All right, Poncho Outdoors. Thanks so much to them, and you can hear about them later on the Outsiders too. They're great sponsors of the Outsiders show. Money B asked about Ewers and about these guys dropping the football and stuff, and maybe we'll have to kind of wait till tomorrow to talk about the whole deep dig because we didn't even start. But I said, man, for Ewers, weird day at the office, and he's asking if it's the drops, and I think the whole Ewers thing is too big a conversation to get into today, because I do have a lot of thoughts on it. My main thought was just that obviously, I think that the 3 high safety stuff that Arkansas was doing had a little bit of an effect on the offensive game plan. But to make a long story short, yes, like Gunnar Helm dropped the one. I think Silas dropped one. I'm trying to think of the other drops. I mean, some of them, like, he was throwing some uncatchable. He threw 2 uncatchable balls to a pretty open Gunnar Helm. Now, Gunnar did drop a terrible one. I really think in this game that losing DeAndre Moore super early on hurt, because Silas Bolden is not as crafty as he is out of the slot. He was not able to exploit the same, exploit those same kind of soft spots that DeAndre Moore can really settle into as a really heady player. Silas is he's not the route runner, and he's not the natural kind of field player that DeAndre Moore is. And I think losing him is a big deal. All the pressure from Kelvin Banks, it's like, who really expects that? But there was also this stuff where whenever he got off his first read, he would get his eyes down, and there was just a lot of trouble navigating the pocket. And I'm one that's I'm not rarely concerned about Quinn. I'm not really concerned about him after this game. I'm certainly not concerned about Sark as a play caller, like some people are saying. But I thought it was a weird day for Quinn, and we can discuss exactly why tomorrow, whenever we have a little bit of time to kind of spin that forward as we look. Now that we're done with the deep dig, as we spin it forward and look towards Kentucky.
I'm going to bring up one more thing here, just because I got this graphic made already. It just popped up your deep dig with the snaps per disruption, and Hayden Connor passed Kelvin Banks in snaps per disruption. I'm going to have a question about that here in a second, but I just got an email from the FWAA, Football Writers Association of America. The Outland Trophy semifinalists have been released as of about 30 minutes ago. I missed this email when it came through. The 7 semifinalists for the Outland Award have been announced. Kelvin Banks, tackle, Texas, is on the list. Will Campbell from LSU. Mason Graham from Michigan, who they played earlier this year. Seth McLaughlin, the center from Ohio State that just tore his Achilles. Wyatt Milam, tackle from West Virginia. Walter Nolan, Ole Miss D tackle. And Addison West, guard, Western Michigan. So Banks is among the final 7.
Yep. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, man. Will Campbell's good. There's all the talk about him. It's like there's people. Everyone's saying now that he has to play guard.
Who said who has to play guard?
Will Campbell. You haven't heard all that Will Campbell needs to play guard talk?
Well, I know Dane Brugler said that Kelvin Banks had to play guard earlier this season.
I've heard at least 2 people. More than that. I've heard two to 3 people say that it's going to be a guard for Will Campbell. I'm sure. We'll talk. Look, I'm glad we have Longhorns to talk about now, guys, because in a few months here, we could have a whole show about whether Will Campbell needs to be a guard or not. So, plenty of time to get into all that stuff. We'll talk about the offensive line tomorrow whenever we get back, and what it means that Kelvin Banks just had 4. He allowed disruption 4 times in this game. 2 really bad pressures. One sack that almost wasn't his fault, and then 1 sack that was certainly his fault. Mm-hmm. But a lot of good evaluation reps versus Landon Jackson in that one. Thanks so much to Specs and everybody here in the Specs chat line. Creeping up towards 700 people here watching the show. So thank you guys so much for being here between YouTube and X. For everybody that watches us live, man, we love you guys. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it, but most of you watch afterwards. And so if you're watching this on Thursday morning or whatever, we hope you have a great Thursday, and hope you'll tune back in again tonight or tomorrow or whenever it is you do it. Remember, Friday, Texas Beef Traders. Come see us live, man. We want to meet you guys, and thank you personally for being a part of this this fun adventure with us, man, as the show continues to keep growing. So thank you guys so much for being here. God bless you. God bless your families. For Cody, I'm Alex. We're done.